I'm just sort of confused. Well, not confused. I'm just sort of blown away or more astounded by what we saw in the episode. And that's not even including the plot. This is just based on cameos, I suppose, and the things that we saw in terms of, hey, look, it's the Eighth Doctor. I screamed. And then we saw older Doctors, which I also screamed at. And for some reason, I cried at the end. Not because of the regeneration. No, I cried because I saw old companions. Old companions, that's all it took. I saw Bonnie Langford and I started crying. I don't even really like Mel.
Hello, my name is Dan Johnson and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing The Power of the Doctor. I suppose that this has always been on the cards for a while, but now I'm actually filming it. It does feel very strange. Obviously I have my subtitles in order to keep myself rigid and keep myself within that structure so that I'm not sort of blabbering all over the place. But I kind of have to start off the video by just screaming about Paul McGann and David Bradley and then David Tennant and the cameos and how they used classic companions and how I cried at that. All it took was some classic companions to appear and I did cry, and I think it's just because I wasn't expecting it. So the whole thing has been quite an emotional roller coaster, really. But I'm going to put all of that beside me for now, because I think that the episode needs to stand by itself. If the 50th anniversary is a good episode. It is very focused on fan service, but within that there is also a good episode and a good plot. And so with that, let's move on to our first subheading, which is plot and plot development. A lot of concerns I had towards the plot of this episode going into it was that the plot was going to be really, really messy and characters weren't going to be able to have the time that they do deserve. And luckily, we didn't have any issues in that aspect. We got a scene with Ace and the 7th Doctor, Tegan and the 5th Doctor. Everything, I think everyone got a moment to shine, which I think was nice. The issue is you have people like Vinda, for example, who even though didn't have any setup for anything major within the story, he entered and left exactly the same. And if you're looking at this as a story, as in if it was like a book or a regular, series of television or episode of television, you would expect there to be a reason for him to be there. And even though they were all there for the ride, which is what this episode was really about, focusing on the Doctor and Yaz rather than anyone outside of that. And, the whole extended family element that they liked, knocking in during this episode. It's all to do with the themes rather than individual characters. But you're seeing Ace and Tegan and Graham and all this amazing stuff here of people from previous episodes dating back nearly 40 years. This was always going to happen, to be honest. And it's not really a valid criticism for me to say, do you know what, with 90 minutes you should have given Ace a plot and you should have given Tegan a plot. But then if you break the episode down into like their individual blocks, like, you look at the Cybermen invading unit, the Daleks in the volcano and the sort of tectonic plates and breaking them in order to damage the world, and the Master becoming the Doctor, which I probably should talk about individually because overall that plot, that Doctor plot, and the Master, I felt very tepid to begin with. I thought, oh, this is kind of strange. I don't like this, to be honest. But I thought about it a little bit and it kind of warmed on me as I saw Shasha's performance. And then I realised that this is perfect for this Master. It's exactly the kind of thing he's into. He loves, or he would much rather be the Doctor. There's that line in The Timeless Children when he says there's a lot of pain that he gets from the idea that a part of him comes from the Doctor. And so for him to want to be and to ultimately discredit that name and that reputation, I think it's like his perfect evil plan. And then for the Daleks and the Cybermen, I think they worked individually. In them invading unit, very, very cool. Thing is, I don't feel like their motivations were really there. They were soldiers in many respects. Otherwise, you're just seeing action figures, which is sort of how Chibnall wrote this episode, just sort of smacking against each other, going, oh, we got Daleks over here, we got Ace, we got T. It's like fan fiction in many respects. I feel like the plots themselves worked quite well individually and had perfectly good endings, but if you were to bring them together in some form to a choke point, a moment of really high drama and tension, where I presume the Doctor would then save the day, or you edited it so all of those moments we saw, the endings of those plots, so Graham and Ace and the bombs and Tegan in that server room, if you cut them right next to each other instead of cutting, getting to the end of the Cybermen plot, then the end of the Dalek plot just felt very strange. So I think that could have done with a slight move around in order to just bring the tension up a bit more. And then an issue that I have with, in fact, a lot of Chibnall's episodes is the let's go here. Now for this, they're ticking off the little jobs that they've got to do before the end of the episode. And for me, that really takes me out of the moment. Because if the Doctor's having to go, oh no, we need to go over here now. Oh no, this needs fixing. It might work for a little while, but after, 4 or 5 times of doing this, you're sitting there going, okay, and we're going back over here because this plot's not completed, and, Chibnall needs a reason for them to go over here, and things like that. So, overall, that's something that does put a bit of a distaste. And if you're watching it again, as I found out with Flux episode 6, the Vanquishers, I hated when we unnaturally jumped from scene to scene and from place to place. As for Doctor and companions, first let's talk about the companions. I mean, there's absolutely loads of them this time. It's the extended fam. But for the most part, as I mentioned previously, the others don't have much substance. They're there for fan service. They're not the main focus of the plot. Sure, they have useful moments, but the important people here are really Yaz and Dan. And we'll talk about Dan first. For me, I think, I love John Bishop as Dan first. I think that he was a really nice little addition to Series 13 and these specials. I like that, the idea that he has to leave now, cut while he's ahead, rather than living out his life in the TARDIS, dying somewhere, and, he has a date to attend to. Even though we didn't see it, we can presume that that is with Di. He has a whole life to lead, and in many respects, he has a confidence or a new spirit going into life now. I think that's a really lovely impact and a lovely final note for his character. As for Yaz, I'm a little bit annoyed. I thought they would do a little bit more with her. I don't know, when she left I thought it was a bit of an anticlimax. I don't know about anyone else, but I mean, I kind of expected them to kiss and that didn't happen. But for Yaz, I mean, she's a perfectly good companion, but I felt like she should have also had a moment of send-off. And even though that scene on the TARDIS was very sweet, and she says, I don't really want to go either, I'm sort of, yeah, it's fine, I guess. I expected a little bit more. I may warm to it in time, but I didn't really enjoy that ending. I feel like there should be a promise of what she's going to do, whether she's going to join Graham and Ryan on their adventures. That would be enough. That would suit. If she's going to continue her life as a police officer, working to save other people with all the experiences that she's had, that would also do. It just felt very like, I'm going to drop you off because I've got to regenerate now. See you later. I can't say it's the best regeneration in terms of like the regeneration and the leading up to it. But I think for her it works really well in the final lines of, Tagurit and that sort of childish attitude which has driven her era, I think does work really nicely for her Doctor. And if you look at her as less of just this sort of erratic, crazy woman and more of a child, I think it does work quite nicely. I think that overall, I have definitely warmed to the 13th Doctor more after this episode. It's a shame that that sort of understanding of her character and how she acts and that childish nature only came into play recently, rather than, oh, is that Ed Sheeran? I feel like, now I have to apologise to my favourite master, who's probably John Sim, but Sacha Dhawan may be my favourite master now. We'll we'll have to think about that one. And as for anything else, I can't say it really stood out to me particularly. Cybermen and Daleks are basically just sort of instruments. I mean, the Cyber Masters are very weird creations. I quite like the idea of them. I think they work quite well, but I don't think that they were particularly utilised very well. They could just be Cybermen. They've just got an extra perk. And then you've got Ashad, who is just sort of there. I nearly forgot to talk about him. He's a perfectly fine villain. The idea of a half-converted Cyberman, very cool. There's that nice shot when he's going through the unit facility. I loved that. I thought that was brilliant. But there's no substance there. Or maybe there was just too much to do. There was no time to give Ashad, a meeting with the Doctor, for example. I can't say I've got many lowlights, to be honest. Apart from the train scene, that was very low lights. I mean, I could barely tell what was going on. I hate it when TV does that. But other than that, highlights, I have absolutely loads. I have the Doctors, obviously. I think they have to be the biggest thing. The regeneration, the final line, the Master becoming the Doctor. There's just loads. Can we just skip on to the next category, please? The negatives that I have is, one, a sense of worry about whether this episode is going to sort of linger in my mind as high as it does currently. If I watch it a few more times, I might go, actually, it's just full of a lot of fan service and, a couple of cool explosions, but the substance, the real meat that goes behind a regeneration story and the tension behind that is missing. In fact, I think that's a fair negative to say, that the tension, the real underlining emotional drama is missing. I think that the Division should have really been the big bad of the 13th Doctor era. The fact that Chibnall dropped the Timeless Children in Series 12 and then hasn't really discussed the ramifications of what it means, which is what, if you're going to make a big reveal, that's kind of what I expected him to do. But they didn't go down that road. Maybe that was due to COVID and having to change what would have been Series 13's structure and changing it to Flux, and maybe some other factors we're not even aware of. But the one negative I walk away from this episode feeling is that, sure, it was a really good ride, but it could have been, or should have been, more exploratory of the emotional drama that has been laid out before. Instead of going, oh my god, there's some Cybermen, there's some Daleks, and that sort of image of him crushing action figures together. It's now 11 o'clock at night, and I'm still reeling from the episode, and I'm still recording the review at 11 o'clock at night. I mean, at this point, I would have sort of had it past my mind, but I kind of had to sit down for a good hour and think about everything and let my brain process the episode I just watched, and that makes it one of the best experiences I've had with Doctor in a very, very long time. So for feel, I'd probably give it a 10 out of 10. But for the episode itself, even though I don't really give them numbers because I don't think that they work as a good way of judging something, it's probably about a 6 or a 7. I mean, that's all my reviews of the 13th era completed. That's quite frightening. It's been a very long journey since 2018. And, let's take a look at what I used to look like. I've lost quite a lot of weight and got a better camera. And learned how to focus things by the look of it and light things, which is very useful. But thank you very much for watching. I really hope you did enjoy this video. I hope you enjoyed Power of the Doctor. Thank you so much for sticking around all this time. Some of you may know that in my personal life, I have, as of today, left my job. I've finished my notice and I start a new one fairly soon that offers me a much better lifestyle, which means that I can do more of the things that I enjoy, and I'm not just talking about videos. So I think there'll definitely be a lot more passion into the things that I enjoy because I'll have more energy for it. And I think that that's something I'm going to be very, very excited about leading up to Christmas. And of course, whatever is happening for the 60th anniversary, whether it's happening on New Year's Day, that would be amazing, but we'll just have to see. But thank you very much for watching. I hope you like and subscribe, and I shall see you soon. Goodbye.